Da 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 da. What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes, get those notifications out. In the meantime, if you've never been into one of my lives before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. Oh my goodness, I have been running around that I just totally lost track of time. Honest mistake in that. The last time I looked at the clock, it was like 6 o'clock. And then I've been doing some shipping. If you guys don't know, I am a I'm a reseller. I usually keep this around here. This is my measures for my items. I'm shipping something and I was checking out prices in the postage. Oh my goodness, trying to get this gentleman the best deal that I possibly can to ship something this big to him. They want $30. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, there's got to be a better way. And then finally I figured something out. I saved a few dollars, not a whole lot less than the 30. But then I thought, oh, thank goodness I can ship this off to him. And then we've got this strike going on. And the town that he lives in, he's from Saskatchewan, the town that he lives in, it just turns out they're having difficulties with the strike. They're doing an intermittent strike, um, which means they're going part-time properly. I don't think that serves anyone. It doesn't serve the public, it doesn't serve the government, and it certainly doesn't serve a corporate company that is probably laying off hordes of employees and asking full-time employees possibly to even sacrifice their hours and possibly go part-time, which is kind of iffy in doing that because it impacts if that person should have to go on unemployment, right? And because the money that you make on unemployment is determined by your last 9 weeks. And so, if they go part time, they sacrifice their full time shifts, then they end up having to go part time. They'll have to fight for their unemployment. Right? They'll have to fight for their unemployment. Right? The government really, I'd like to say they don't want to part with their money. Nobody wants to part. Nobody wants to part with their money. But I really can't say how stingy they are because, there's so many great things that I think that the government, in using those funds from our taxes, that they are distributing it in ways that I think are pretty decent. It was even for myself, I was able to get $2,500 worth of dental work done this year and only paid a few $100s. And that was a miracle for me, for myself. That was great, but it was unexpected. I would never have thought because for the qualifications in order to get into that Red Cross Canadian dental plan, you have to land in between a certain income and then a percentage is what you paid to the dentist. I got covered 100%. If I got covered 100%, can you imagine how many low income families are out in the country, right? The whole country, because it was by the federal government that put this program into effect. For myself, I was putting off my dental because I knew it was so expensive and I wasn't in a position to divvy out that kind of money. But at that time, I was still working while I was going through that process last year. It was on my goal list and I can't imagine how many people out there aren't working, right? That are on disability, that are on CPP, not even on their pensions, right? That they're putting off the dental work that they so need. Now I know there's reasoning in it. I know in a lot of it it's a little bit of investment now so that in the future, right, that they're not going to have to divvy out a lot of money. But I don't know how much of dental causes healthcare issues, causes issues in the medical system. I wouldn't have thought so, but there's got to be some reasoning in that. But I am not complaining in it. Like I said, I'm super grateful that I was able to get my dental work done, and I think it was absolutely magnificent. It was like a Christmas gift to myself, not to myself, well, for myself, right? Because the government, and I was so grateful for that. But oh, I bet you they divvied out a lot of money, and they still are. A lot of people don't even know about the program. I was in a store the other day, and we were talking money. I don't know what the conversation was, but we were talking money, and he just went into this spiel about, how he needs so much dental work done, and how this job and the hours that he has, it's not going to help to get this work done. And I says, well, are you on the Canadian dental plan? I said, you can't be making so much money here that you wouldn't qualify. And he says, Canadian dental plan, what's that? So I told him all about it. He said on his break, I says, it takes 5 minutes to fill out the application. So many people don't even know the program, about the program. If you're Canadian, take a look at that. Um, and you can make up to $90,000 a year in order to get onto that program. Mind you, you might only be covered 30% or 40%, but 30% or 40% of a couple of $1,000s is quite a bit of money, right? I'm grateful I was covered 100%. But yeah, I worry a little bit about the Canada postal system, especially, when we buy things as a right human beings. We are now in the age of AI, right? So everything is digital, and everything is um brought down to a minimal cost. And we have become privileged in the fact that we can go online, pick our clothes and our personal needs, and even the big ticket items, and free shipping. You get on Prime, and like they make it so comfortable for us and so easy for us to do nothing. It's like that movie Wall-E. Have you ever seen that one with the robot and the cockroach left on the moon, and they were garbage collectors, right? And everybody had left the earth, and they went out, and I'm going all over the place, and they went off into space in their spaceships to look for a new place to live, rather than cleaning up the place that they were living in already. But they were sitting in their office chairs and their spaceship chairs, and the chairs, they didn't even have to get out of their chairs. Their chairs had wheels, or right, hoovered or something. They just kind of moved around all over the place, and everybody was hooked up to everything that they needed, right? That's what we're coming to. We are so spoiled, right? But to have those packages delivered right to our door, we don't have to go to the malls, right? There's no need to wonder why the malls are dying out while they're all abandoned, right? You go online and you Google urban explorers, 50% of the urban explorers these days are abandoned malls and shopping plazas and stuff, right? So I wonder, right? What's the future going to be like for Canada Post, right? What's it going to what's it going to be like? What's it going to be like for all of us, right? For all of us moving forward, right? Was that movie Wall-E just a foreshadowing of what's coming, how we're going to move? I think a lot of why we wake up to some of these ideas is to iron out some of these kinks, right? Because we do not, right? What species in the world is totally inactive, right? Even a clam moves. So, why are we so adamant that everything has to be easy? I think, maybe it's time to cap off a lot of those um, robotics and technology and stuff that does do detrimental damage to humans, right? Because oh my goodness, we're not even getting exercise anymore. We're not even getting up to change the channel on the televisions anymore. Hello, Eugene. Hello, dear. Um, I hope you're having a great night. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming into my live every night. I super, super appreciate it. Yeah, but so today I've been just kind of doing some listing, and I'm just right. A gentleman called me. He wanted to purchase something that I had listed this afternoon, but he lived in another province. And I said, sure, it's no skin off my back. I could ship it to you. I'll just get you a pricing. And then when I saw the pricing, then it became a little bit of a chore. And then it's in communicating with him because he's sitting on his couch, I'm sure, waiting for me to get back to him as to what the cost, because the item he picked up is not super expensive, but not cheap, right? Not quite $100, but still, that's money. That's milk on the kids cereal. So I don't want to gouge out people's eyes with higher costs when it comes to Canada Post, right? Yeah, it makes me wonder, what we're going to look like in 50 years. Not what we're going to look like, possibly, because already in the past 20 years with plastic surgery, I was online today and I saw a picture of a lady. She looked 35 years old. She looked 35. She was beautiful, absolutely beautiful, smooth skin. She didn't look like she had a facelift or anything, but obviously she did because she was almost 75 years old. I couldn't I couldn't believe it. She looked half my age. It's pretty incredible, right? How we're moving and how fast we're moving, right? And I'm a true believer that that we were supposed to just make it to this point. That I'm optimistic that was the plan, that we were just supposed to make it to this point. And right, technology, AI learning, all those answers that we've always, right, asked, that we're going to be able to have answers for lots of things. I was delving a little bit into Tutankhamun today. He's an Egyptian pharaoh, and his family, right? And his family was super inbred and everything. And when they were digging for his tomb, well, they didn't know it was his tomb, but they were digging for a tomb. They found a tomb, but before they found that tomb, they found some openings where there were some mummies that had been scattered and just tossed to the side and stuff in the looting of the tombs, right? So they did DNA recently on Tutankhamun's he had two daughters. They were both, um, uh, uh, they were, they died in the womb. That's what they had. They weren't born. So he had two mummified babies, and they did the DNA tests on the babies just to make sure that they were his babies, and also to pull out some DNA so that they could do some matching with the other mummies that were just kind of tossed around, and they kind of figured they must have been royalty, right, or priests at the very least, but they wanted to see if they were related anyway, and it turned out that it was uh, Tutankhamun's mother and Nefertiti, which was Tutankhamun's wife, but also uh, his half sister. We're getting this kind of information out of blood, right? We're getting this kind of information out of blood. Can you imagine if you tried to explain to somebody, say, 40 years ago, right? 40 years ago, and just say, oh, well, this is what Tutankhamun's mom looked like, and this is his kids, and this is his wife, and people just like, yeah, right, right. But you can't deny the evidence when it's presented, but that evidence was not retrievable 40 40 years ago. It would have sounded like a fantasy. It would have sounded like Star Trek, right? And that's probably a bad analogy because Star Trek isn't so out of the belief system, it's believable, it's something achievable now. But when they made Star Trek, right? The Well, I was going to say, beam me up, Scotty. They haven't got that one figured out yet. Not that I know of. Not that we haven't heard about yet. But, all that other technology in the computer panels and all of, right? That's all going on now. So it's not such a fallacy. But when they made that television show, it was, right? And if they tried to convince anybody that this was the future, nobody would have believed them, right? Maybe a few, because by then they had already stepped foot on the moon, and lots of people are really good at projecting the future, right? The future is projectable, right? It is predictable, but you have to do a lot of analyzing, like what they did with King Tut and his family and everything. But oh my goodness, that inbred really, really, really messed up his family and messed himself up. He had scoliosis, he had clubfoot, he had oh my goodness, he had a few conditions that he had, and when he died, he actually they figured out that he died because he had a bone in his knee pop out. What do you call fractures? Impact fractures or something. The ones where the bone sticks out in his knee. But at the same time as he got that, he got malaria. He got malaria. So between the fever and his knee, that's what killed him. And they, in those days, they were knocking off the pharaohs and the kings, and right, that was the thing to do because there was the next conqueror who wanted to come in and take control. It's just crazy the way that we move, the way that we think, right? It is, lots of times we think that it's just crazy time, that the world is just gone to pot, but you got to think, right? What did the world look like 200 years ago, right? You wouldn't have had flushing toilets. You wouldn't have been able to have a nice clawfoot bathtub and soak in the tub. You wouldn't have been able to drive down to the mall. You wouldn't have been able, no, I have no idea where my phone is. You wouldn't have no idea, right? You wouldn't be able to scroll and do your thing on the phones. I would not be sitting here. I believe I would have been a communicator, right? In some fashion. I think communication is where I sit in what I do. Um, Only because of the way my life has played out and because I know my strengths and my weaknesses. But I just wanted, I didn't have any plan to talk about the technology and stuff. It just kind of it just kind of led into that, right? Through the conversation about the Canada postal strike. But it is an adapt and conquer, isn't it? Right? It's about making that movement and truly not just movement in the mind and in the soul, but we need to be physically more active. We do really need to be physically more active. Yeah. I wasn't a big fan of gym class. I wasn't a big fan of sports at all. But again, that was my upbringing, right? Because being self-conscious about my weight, I was an obese kid, an obese young adult, right? That I had been impacted by my experiences as being an obese kid. So it was kind of, I don't know. I'm just trailing. I'm just trailing. I'm just trailing everywheres in that. But I do believe that we really do need to be more physically active. Yeah. I've always been active, but I don't believe in hard impact. I've never done hard impact exercise unless I was forced to by the teacher, right? Go jog around the school before you do gym class, and I would hide in the tennis courts, right? I didn't like tennis. I didn't like skiing, right? But I loved walking. I loved riding my bike. I loved swimming, right? So non impact exercise is where I stay active. And then, of course, being um, highly sensitive, being empathic, I was that person that was always busy. Right? There was no sitting down because if I was sitting down, then I was lazy, right? By somebody else's ideas or expectations. So I've always kept myself busy, my entire life, but not crazy, not the weightlifting, not the running, not right, nothing like that. For team sports, I did a little bit of skating when I was a kid, both roller and figure. I did, of course, the swimming. I was a competitive swimmer, I think, until I was about 12 or 13 years old, until I was too self-conscious to be in a bathing suit and right have people sit up on the bleachers and watch me. So I gave that up. Bike riding, it's something I've been doing since I was a little kid. This year, I didn't ride my bike this year. I'm not even sure. We have a rooftop bike rack, and I've had it locked up there all year just because I don't have the space in my apartment. And I haven't even checked the roof to see if my bike is still there, right? It doesn't matter to me if it's there. If it's, if somebody needed it, they could have had it. And I'll go get myself another one next year for sure. I'll have a new mountain bike. But I don't want to get so deep into the technology. But we're all getting pulled into it in some way, right? That's the idea, I think, of it, that, at the very least, right? It was probably, I think that idea of when COVID happened, right? And, when your kid's on the other side of the country and the whole world is shut down, you wouldn't have been able to speak to your kids or see your kids or speak to your grandkids or, right, see your grandkids. And it was out of necessity that, people in retirement, people who are more mature, people who had no interest and no intent in participating in the digital age, found themselves being pulled into it out of necessity, right? I think we are meant all to move that way, right? We're all meant to move that way. I believe that a lot of people are missing out on great opportunities to make some movement. Right? In all aspects of our life, that we're all supposed to be able to get out there and make some movement, but you can't just be singular in that movement, right? I can't just take in lessons and expect that I'm going to make that movement. It's practicing my craft. It's connecting socially with others. It's in running it's in running my little reselling business, right? It's keeping the roof over my head, right? I haven't worked now in 6 months, and it's been keeping me going, right? Paying the bills, putting groceries into the fridge. I'm not getting rich off of it, right? But it's giving me ideas that possibly maybe I could go into business with my sister and open up a thrift store, right? Open up my own thrift store, and I would hire second chance, right? People who have had rough times in holding on to employment, and see if I could bring them on board and and help them to settle into a job where they feel valued, where they're not yelled at and directed at, where, where that poison of gossip and picking on your peers is kind of the norm. I would like to be able to run a business where people who are quite capable, more than capable, right? After my marriage fell apart, I had such a hard time, right? Finding finding jobs and keeping jobs, right? My mental state after my marriage fell apart was not great. I didn't care, right? I didn't care about too much at the time, except to just keep going, manage somehow, adapt and conquer, right? And I'm grateful because I found one of those organizations, not a thrift store, but an organization that actually helped people specifically like me find jobs that they can love, that they can stay in. And I did, right? This last job I left, I was there for 5 years. I held on to that job. I loved that job. I loved aspects of that job. And sometimes, it's just one bad apple, right? And found myself in the repeat, right? Found myself again without a job, but I did manage to hold that job for almost 6 years or 5 years, for quite a while though. Okay, you guys, enough about that. We're going to pull a card. We're going to pull a card. We're just going to go into it for a couple of minutes. And yeah, again, thank you, Eugene, for popping in and keeping me company tonight. Anything else that I'm missing out on? Just just busy. That's what it is. And it's good. But I want to make sure that what I'm busy in is necessary. I just don't want to be busy for the fact of being busy, for the sake of being busy. Okay, here we go. Just close that. We're just going to pull a card. Oh my goodness, it's amazing. We got two cards here. Should we use one? Okay, we'll do both. I accidentally pulled two cards. Maybe we can put the two cards together. But we got two cards here. Gratefulness. Gratefulness is the expression, appreciation, and acknowledgement of what we have received. Right? So grateful to have been busy today in things that are going to put groceries in the cupboard to get my bills paid. Grateful that in that process that I remembered I was supposed to go live. I looked up at the clock and said, "Oh my goodness, I gotta go live." And then I made 5 minutes extra. I was late anyway. Made an extra 5 minutes so I could make a cup of tea. Let's have a sip. I'm using my Be Kind cup. If you don't know, I've been using my great big Tim Hortons travel mugs lately in my lives, but I have a ton of inspirational coffee mugs. I haven't been using them lately because I always feel I need lots. Yeah. Okay. Gratefulness is the expression of appreciation and acknowledgement of what we receive. I am so grateful, right? I am so grateful. and that is true. Sometimes we receive stuff that we're not so excited about, that possibly we're downright upset about, right? And I've had those experiences lately myself. But at the same time, right? There was the best of times, there was the worst of times. And in that process, good things are happening too. So it had a little bit of sense of balance for me. So again, I'm going to have to say grateful for the little bit of balance, right? The balance. I accept what what goes wrong. You really don't have a choice in that except to accept it in the moment. Now, there's resolutions, or there's work that you can be done, or you can fix it. That's amazing, but at the very least you have to accept whatever disaster, whatever heartbreak or grief, or right, those spilt milks that we can't cry over because it's said and done, right? Yeah. Grateful. Okay, so the second one, integrity. Integrity is the example that others will follow. This is something that I recognize integrity in me. Maybe others might not, but in working with me at the very least, you would clearly see that integrity because as being a leader, right? That you're able to give instructions or designate chores and stuff, and when you don't get that feedback, that negative, really, I got to do that? What are you talking about? I'm not talking to you. I'm not listening to you. Forget you, right? I have never ever been in that position when I've asked for help. People just do it, right? And that is a sign, right? Because that makes me the example for other people, because people would say that I would never ask them to do anything that I wouldn't do myself. And in fact, if I ask somebody to do something, you can guarantee that I'm in there and I'm helping in that. Not in a dictatorship kind of way, but physically, mentally, emotionally, even if I'm sitting there and just being a cheerleader in that, right? And that was one of the things that I did love about my job was the respect, right? But that respect was only given because I was that example to others. So I have to probably recognize that maybe, right, I have a little bit integrity about me in that, right? Integrity is the example that others will follow. It's always my intent to come in and be that example, right? It really is. And what anybody else's perspective in what I'm doing um, doesn't matter. I'm going to do it anyway, right? Because this is my calling now. Right? This is my movement forward, right? This is my brand. And I would like to think that in my brand that I'm showing up with a little bit of integrity. Am I perfect? No, I was 10 minutes late today, right? And I could have been responsible and just offhandedly check the clock every 15 minutes while I was doing my work, but I was so into what I was doing. It just kind of, and it happens, it really does, right? And that's the privilege, that's the prerogative of being your own boss, right? And I'm not quite saying that I'm an entrepreneur. Like I said, I'm putting groceries in the cupboard and I'm paying some bills, but I'm not really getting rich in what I'm doing. But in that, I'm being that example, right? And even with this gentleman that I was working with this afternoon, right? I've never shipped off of marketplace, right? But it's only because of the tariffs in the states and because he lives in another province, and I don't know what he was doing in Winnipeg marketplace, but he was, and he found something that he liked, and it's no skin off of my back, and it's a kindness, isn't it? Right? Because he really loved this item. I already have it boxed up because I was trying to take measurements of the box and everything. I already have it boxed, so I would show you otherwise. But it was actually an antique Tibetan silver teapot. It was only about this big and this wide, covered in dragons and monkeys and butterflies, and it was enameled, and it had marble glass out, and it was so beautiful, right? I bought it for myself, but it is one of my knickknacks that I just bought because it was beautiful, not because I had to have it, that I was attached to it, like it belonged on this wall here, right? Okay, so let's get back to this word. Integrity is the example that will others will follow. That's what we look for, right? When we're giving our vote for the prime minister or the president or MLA or right, your governor, like, right? We look for people that we can trust, right? That we can rely on them to make good choices, that they could represent uh, a city or country or community, right, in a good way. That's kind of a good word because, I would like to think that others would think that I had a little bit of integrity. Like I said, am I perfect? No, but it is in my intent, right? And I mean well in what I do, and I read a situation and I read an environment, right? And I conform to the needs of what I'm walking into. You know what I mean? If I'm going to church, I'm not wearing a mini skirt and a tank top and I don't know, whatever else, right? Like you dress for the moment. You go to court. You know, you're not going to go, "Hey, judge, this is the way it's going." You go, "Ma'am," right? Or "Miss Judge," or whatever. You show that respect. That's right. Being able to read the environment that you're in, right? To be able to read a little bit of the people that are surrounding you, and to be able to be uh what is it, suited for that, right? Because we all have to represent a little bit differently, right? I was grateful for that job where I could dress the way that I wanted, right? I'm pretty casual in my dress wear. I would never be suited for an office job, though I have, right? Because the environments that we occasionally go into, we need, right? That's why we have different wardrobes, because we have to step into the clothes and then step in to the environment that required us to step in to those clothes. That's just, I don't know if that was a good example of that, right? But, uh, but yeah, that's what I've got for you tonight. We had two cards. Oh, Robert. Robert, what's going on? What's going on? Tell me. Okay, you guys, we're just having a moment here, so we're just gonna stick in here and we're just gonna see what Robert has to say here, right? At the very least, get him through, right? Get him through so that he can think a little. 66, right? I'm 64, Robert. I'm 64. And I'm on my own, and I know, right? You live in a household, but you're on your own too, right? And it's about being your own best friend, right? Give yourself those. I know, Robert. I know over the past few years a little bit about your story there, Robert, but you know, it's been that way for a few years, and you've got to create a life for yourself. You can't if they're going to treat you the way that they've been treating you, then you have to step outside of that and live your own life, right? And I do that for myself too, just to do things on my own. Fine, right? I know that you have hobbies that you love to do, right? Maybe it's about spending a little bit more time in your hobbies. Or maybe, we talk about the gratefulness, right? Maybe, Robert, that you tonight, right? Because you're feeling so bad tonight and you feel that way you do. I think that you need to make a list, right? Uh, a grateful, a gratefulness, a gratefulness list. There are always things to be grateful for. The meal that you had, the bed that you sleep in, job that you have. I'm not going to say the house because I know the situation with your house, right? But right, you can find gratefulnesses, right this moment, Robert. Just grab a pen and a piece of paper and make a list of all the things that you're grateful for. And I wouldn't stop until you have 10. It'll probably be pretty fast that you'll be able to get two or three at the very least pretty fast. You might go a little bit slower in order to get 10. But I'd like you to try and get 10 things to be grateful for. Just by yourself, not with anybody else, just on your own. I bet you can find those 10 things, right, Robert? And you can message me too, Robert, if you want to chit chat. Message me, right? And we can chit chat. I'm happy to chit chat with you, especially when I know a little bit about your situation, right? And it's not about giving up. I hate that. I hate that people are so quick to give up in their situations and in their problems. We all get into those doozy situations. Even in my week this week, Robert, I had such a hard week this week. My cat dying. It's been absolutely just awful. I could barely get myself to move around. And today I said that I was just going to get some stuff done. And I've been doing that every day and I'm getting stuff done. And that's why I said when I came in tonight, I just don't want to stay busy for the sake of staying busy. I want to get things done. I want to make movement, right? I had a 20 grand inheritance. Everybody drained me quick. Now you have nothing. Did you have to share that money, Robert? Right? Did you just hand that money over? Right? You could have put it in the bank and not have said anything about it. You could have invested that in yourself. You could have got yourself You could have got yourself an apartment. You could have got yourself out of that situation, right? So I know it's scary, right? I know it's scary to make movements sometimes, lots of times, right? But this is for yourself. And I think, if you were your friend, right? You be your friend. You be your parent. I know, right? As an adult, as a 66-year-old, you don't, right? You don't need parenting, you're thinking. But I'm 64 years old, right? And sometimes I feel like going goo goo gaga, right? Like I feel like a kid. And that would make you feel good. It's a good feeling to be taken care of, right? And that comes from somebody who kind of lives on their own and hangs on their own. But on occasion, these kindnesses, they come across my path, right? Like my sister taking care of my brother-in-law taking care of my cat when I went on holidays, right? Or my sister giving me some gas money, helping me out. Like, these are things that alleviate the pain, alleviate the negative that drags us down, right? And I think in this moment, it's not too late, Robert. It's never ever too late. Oh my goodness. Right? You've been doing this a long time. You've been putting up with this for a long time. Okay, you screwed up. $20,000 gone. Right? I know about blowing money, right? Money comes into my hand and it just kind of dribbles out. I don't even know half the time where it goes, right? And then we scramble to try and keep things together. But that's life, Robert. And I know you're saying you've had enough, right? But you're not done yet. You're not even close to being done yet, right? Do for yourself. Do for yourself. Get on that list and not only make a list of things that you're grateful for, Robert. Why don't you make a little bit of a list like I do? I have my goal list. My goal should be right here on my desk somewhere. Oh my goodness. I have no idea where it is. Should be on my desk. But I make a goal list myself. And, lots of times we think we're not going to be able to accomplish anything. But if you have that list, you'd be surprised what you can accomplish. You have responsibilities. And if you had that goal list before you got that inheritance, Robert, you would have known where that money was going to go to. And you would have been able to do a little pat on your back and say, "Oh, good job. Good job, Robert." Right? That money is going towards, and then you look at your list, I'm going to pay this off, and I'm going to buy this, and oh my goodness, I can fix this, right? Make a little list, Robert, of goals, right? And then make one goal a dream goal, something big, something that you really want, or something that you really, really need, and something that you think might be, right, not super impossible, like I want a jet plane or something like that, but my own home, right? A new car, right? I'd like to go camping, right? I'd like to move somewhere that's close to a park trail. Maybe I need to date. Robert, you can come and talk to me on Instagram. Just find me on Instagram. I'm the same, Prairie Dodgers. Just message to me. We can have a private chit chat. We can have a private chit chat on Instagram, Robert. And you don't ever have to feel dumb in these situations. Do you know what? You're in no worse spot than anybody else. You are just brave enough to talk about it. You just have the courage to look for possibly a solution or get somebody else's feedback, right? Where everybody else is saying, I'm good, I'm good, right? Right? And they just pretend and, right? And they're suffering with the feelings that you're suffering, but they have nowheres to unload that. Oh my goodness, Robert, be proud. Be I'm proud of you, right? You've got to be so open and brave, right? I know for myself. I have these conversations online all the time, right? But but I just have to keep remembering that I'm doing a good job, right? I'm doing the best that I can in the moment, and you have to feel that way too. I think it's absolutely courageous that you find a way to take that lid off the tea kettle and let the steam whistle go to get that out of your system. At the very least, it gets you through the day, it gets you through the night, maybe gets you through the week. Maybe it's enough. Maybe it was something you didn't know, Robert, and that's all you needed to hear, right? But Robert, yes, it right, I get it, right? It's not always great just to come into the comments, but you are no different than anybody else. You're just, like I said, brave enough to talk about it. Then you need some freedom. You need a list of goals, Robert. A list of goals. And if you have any more money coming in, if you have any other hints of an inheritance coming your way, I hope you have that list there. And I hope everybody knows where that money is going to go. That everybody knows that they're not even getting 5 cents, right? Not 5 cents. Oh, Robert, it has been a long time, is right? It has been a long time. but maybe we can work through this. Maybe we can make a little bit of movement together in this, right? Message me on Instagram. You can, right? I'm up usually until 11 o'clock in the evening anyway. Um, Between 9 and 10 o'clock, I'm here online, so you would have to come into the comments in order for us to have a conversation. But anytime during the day, message me tomorrow, Robert. Right? Message me tomorrow. I'll watch for your message, and we'll have a video call. Right? We can do a video call or something and be able to um, maybe resolve a few things, at the very least, make you feel a little bit more optimistic about your future. Never too late. Don't even say that. I'm only 2 years younger than you, Robert. I'm only 2 years younger than you. Don't be the example for me. Let me, right, be the example for you in this, right? We have a lot of similarities going on in our lives, right? So maybe it's in those similarities that maybe we can exchange a little bit of information, and I can make a little bit of movement and you can make a little bit movement, and you'll feel a little bit better. I would hate to think, right, that you're going to spend the rest of your life feeling like you're in jail. Oh my goodness, that's a terrible way to feel. Okay, you guys, that's going to be my good cheer. I hope you have an amazing weekend. I am done now. I'll be back on Sunday night. Uh, Chatters Live, if you want to come in and hang out with us, it's pretty casual, right? On Sunday nights, Robert, Sunday, right? Maybe you need to talk to the crew, right? I'm thinking Andrew might be able to help you out on that, or maybe Owen, even, right? Uh, they're absolutely amazing teammates for me, right? And you can be comfortable on that live show for sure, right? Because we envelop each other, we support each other, right? Okay, you guys. Robert, you're gonna message me? Oh, you don't have for YouTube. Oh my goodness. Okay, so then what you can do then? Oh, I you don't even have a cell phone. You don't know how to work one. Oh my goodness. Right? There's your prison cell right there, Robert. Right? Right? How do you stay connected with the outside world? Right? How do you do that? I hope you're out there socializing, right? Do you do church? Do you go to church, or do you go to bars, or do you go to the library? You go to festivals, go to the beach? I don't know where you live. If you're here in Winnipeg, you're not going to the beach, because yeah, the snow is coming. The snow is definitely coming. Um well, Robert, you can send me. Oh, you can't even send me an email. Do you have a computer, Robert? You must have a computer in order to have. Um, okay, the laptop. My email is down below, Robert. Email me. We'll do it. We'll do it through the emails. How's that? Okay, we'll do it. We'll do it through the emails. We'll figure it a way. We'll start there, and then we'll move into something else. Maybe we'll move you into a cell phone, right? Maybe you can move you into a cell phone, even if it's just one of those little flip phones, right? If you have a laptop, that's good for being online. But yeah, you definitely need a phone, especially in an emergency. right? For emergencies, we all depend. I don't know what we did in emergencies when we only had landlines, right? Like, oh my goodness, have a car accident. Aw, thank you. Thank you, Robert. But yeah, my email is down below. We'll do it. We'll do it in emails. Okay. We'll have this conversation. We'll do it in emails. And we'll figure something out. There must be uh another way that possibly we can do this. Maybe I can do we could do a Google Meet or a Zoom call if you have a laptop, and I'll just talk you through it, right? I'll just talk you through the details of how we get it done. But message me tomorrow, okay, Robert? You have a good sleepy tonight. You have a good sleepy, right? We're going to get through this, and we're going to get through it together, right? We're going to get through it together. Everybody, have a great night. We'll see you Monday.